An anti-terror raid in Belgium that officials say left 2 suspects dead. The raid part of a bigger anti-terror operation across that country. Right now, the international hotspot, Verviers, Belgium. Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Franzen in New York. The raid comes just a week after the terror attacks in Paris, and that raid happened in the city of Verviers, about an hour away from Belgium. And for more, I want to bring in ABC's Louise DeWast in Paris. Hi, Louise. Belgian authorities held a news conference just a short time ago. What did they tell us?
Hi, well, yes, we just heard from the federal prosecutor's office, who confirms that 2 dead and 1 injured after a police raid in eastern Belgium. So this follows surveillance of a terror cell in Belgium, where individuals were suspected to be returning from Syria and planning an imminent and major attack in Belgium.
It also seems that this wasn't just a one-person operation, but a coordinated effort throughout Belgium. Is that correct?
Right. Well, local media in Belgium is reporting that at least 3 other raids, well, 3 raids overall happened in different cities across the country, including in the capital, Brussels.
Give us an idea, why do you think Belgian authorities want to act so quickly? Is it because they estimate that many foreign ISIS fighters actually come from Belgium?
Right. Well, the tension here all over Europe is very, very high, especially after the attacks in Paris last week. In Belgium, it is known that there are about 300 Belgian citizens who are currently fighting in Syria, along with ISIS and jihadists.
All right, Louise DeWast, thank you very much for joining us and giving us an update.
Thank you for having me.
And for more on that raid, I want to bring in ABC News crime and terror analyst Brad Garrett in Washington. Hi, Brad.
Hello.
It's probably not a coincidence that this raid happened just a week after the Paris raid, but give us an idea of what the urgency is in light of those attacks.
Well, raids get triggered by 2 things. One is that they have concerns about a particular group going operational, or they know that they're going operational. My sense is the following, that they have tracked a number of recent folks returning from Syria, going back to various locations in Belgium with information that they're going to launch an attack. And one of the prosecutors in Belgium even used the term imminent attacks a few minutes ago. So that's telling me that they felt like they needed to stop at least more than one individual or groups of individuals. I've actually heard the number up to 10 raids today throughout Belgium. So, these things have sort of a domino effect, because let's say that there are fighters coming back from Syria and they are sort of the nexus of why this is occurring in Belgium, which I think is probably the case. Because of wiretaps, because of connections between individuals and groups, they may have coordinated some attacks potentially, particularly if ISIS has directed these attacks. Did they send them back recently to go and do whatever in particular locations? My guess is probably yes. And as a result, you're going to see this domino effect, as I mentioned earlier, in Belgium and in probably other locations in Europe, where they have the highest concentration of residents that have gone to Syria and Iraq to fight with ISIS.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. What is each country doing when people want to come back to their own country after fighting with ISIS?
Well, the real key, Michelle, is surveillance at almost every level. Obviously covering phones, email. There may even be the listening devices at various locations. They're going to do surveillance. Hopefully they have sources in these communities or in and around some of these guys. It's going to be a combination of that, and then connecting the dots with other countries, including the U.S., if it's relevant, as to movements, other people that they have a relationship with. For example, who's supplying the weapons? Who's supplying the explosives? All of those things are potential leads into the players at each one of these locations. So I think we're going to see an increase in this throughout Europe because there are, just by sheer numbers, a lot of people that have traveled from Iraq and Syria back to their homeland. And ISIS may feel like that they're a bit emboldened because of last week, because at least the shooter at the market, at the kosher market, contends he's connected to ISIS, and apparently his wife slash girlfriend has returned to Syria. I assume into the arms of ISIS.
All right, so Brad, we are seeing more of these raids. Obviously, as you mentioned, in Europe will continue. We're seeing more of them here in the U.S. How do law enforcement have to shift to this new real-time reality, and what are the challenges for them on such this wide scale?
Well, it's a task that you really can't even get your arms around because it's all so driven on timeliness. My guess is, for example, these raids that you and I are watching in Belgium were driven because they felt like they had to do them to stop attacks. Do we have information like that? We might. I don't know. There certainly hasn't been any activity. I'm only using that as an example that could trigger that same sort of proactive behavior by law enforcement in the United States. The other problem is the spinoff. Exclude ISIS and ISIS fighters returning to the sort of wannabe that get sort of emboldened, if you will, by these new raids and the discussion of ISIS and the fighting with ISIS to go off on their own or do something. So, and you can't really ignore those people. Some of them are probably not capable of pulling off an attack, but others may well be. So it's like two channels you have to run in, and it gets very complicated. And how do you divide up your manpower? And sometimes you don't do it correctly because you don't have the information, and that's what is the scary part of this. If you don't know it, you can't stop it.
Certainly a big challenge. Brad, I want to bring back Luis DeWast in Paris. One story that has captured the French public's attention after the terror attacks was about the Muslim worker in the kosher market. Now he's being hailed as a hero. Tell us about that. And people are calling for him to get French citizenship.
Right. Well, let me just remind you who he is. So he's indeed a Muslim employee who helped the hostages hide in the cold room during the terrible incident of last week. And then he staged an incredible escape out of the supermarket. Today, I met him, and he said that the president himself had told him that he would help him get French citizenship. There's been a petition here in France with more than 2,100 people signing for him to get French citizenship. And it looks like next Tuesday he will indeed be awarded with French citizenship.
All right, one of the stories that we'll be following. Luis DeWast in Paris, thank you so much. And Brad Garrett in Washington, thank you. And you can keep up with this story in real time by downloading the ABC News app and starring the story for those exclusive updates on the go. You've been watching International Hotspot. I'm Michelle Franzen in New York.